Lost Creek was a name spoken in hushed tones, often accompanied by furtive glances and nervous laughter. For years, curious souls would occasionally venture into its depths, convinced they could gather tales of horror that could outshine the legends. But none ever stayed long. They became part of the fabric of its myths, returning to their homes with a haunted gaze, whispering about the shadows that moved amidst the ruins, and warning others to stay away. The town had once thrived with laughter, music, and a sense of community. It was a place where children ran through vibrant streets, and sunlight danced on the polished storefronts. But that was decades ago. The old mill, with its towering structure and rusting machinery, had been the heart of the town, where families worked side by side. When the mill closed, the life drained from Lost Creek. The streets, once filled with life, were now marked by crumbling buildings and overgrown weeds that whispered secrets of the past. As the sun set behind the skeletal remains of what was once a proud town, the only sound breaking the silence was the melancholic sigh of the wind. A chill crept through the air as a solitary figure strode through the main street, the soft crunch of gravel beneath heavy boots punctuating the eerie stillness. Ilara, with her auburn hair cascading down her shoulders and a sparkle of defiance in her hazel eyes, entered Lost Creek with a blend of dread and determination. She had heard the stories, the ghostly apparitions and the haunting figure known as Thrasher. Yet, something gnawed at her, an insatiable curiosity that drove her into the abyss. With a flashlight clasped tightly in one hand and a worn camera in the other, Ilara sought out the remnants that narrated Lost Creek's tragic tale. She stepped carefully, her heart racing, feeling the weight of the town's despair bear down on her. The shadows seemed to stretch unnaturally, and the oppressive silence only deepened her unease. Her friends had warned her, but she needed this story, a chance to breathe life into a dying legend. As she turned the corner, she stumbled upon the old tavern, the sign hanging precariously from rusted chains, creaking in the wind. Her heart raced not just from fear but from the thrill of the unknown. Inside, the remnants of chairs and tables lay strewn about, as if frozen in time. Faded photographs lined the walls, faces staring blankly back at her. Ilara felt their eyes upon her, their silent screams echoing in her mind. Before her concentration faded into darkness, a sound snapped Ilara back to reality, a faint thud echoed from behind her. She whirled around, flashlight beam trembling, illuminating the empty room. A rat scurried past, disappearing into the cracks of the floorboards, but Ilara's heart pounded harder. Was she alone? With a heavy breath, Ilara pressed on. She was not going to be deterred by her overactive imagination. After all, it was curiosity that drove her deeper into Lost Creek. Among the scattered debris, she found an old photograph of the town's last festival, a celebration before the darkness descended. The smiling faces contrasted sharply with the desolation surrounding her. She snapped a picture with her camera, wanting to capture a piece of its lost history. As she continued through the abandoned spaces, the air thickened with an unshakable weight, and a sudden chill enveloped her. She captured the flickering shadows with her flashlight, feeling as though something was watching her. The hairs on the back of her neck prickled as she recalled tales of Thrasher, a man whose name was whispered like a curse. They said he dwelled in the dark recesses of Lost Creek, a specter of vengeance born from the suffering of the town. Just as she was about to lose herself in thought, the sound of a heavy footstep interrupted her. It echoed through the dim chamber, reverberating off the walls like a warning. Heart pounding, she hurried to the shattered window and peered outside into the dark recesses of the town. The moon cast an otherworldly glow, illuminating the overgrown streets, now marred with shadows that seemed to shift. A sudden rustling came from the direction of the old mill, the source of constant tales about Thrasher. With a mixture of trepidation and resolve, Ilara moved forward, feeling an irresistible pull toward the mill's towering structure. She needed to understand what had happened here, why the town and its people had fallen into this state of despair. As she crossed the threshold of the mill, Ilara felt the air still around her, thick with the scent of rust and water. Blinded temporarily by the darkness within, she flicked on her flashlight, revealing echoes of machinery, long-forgotten tools, and the remnants of a once vibrant life. The light flickered across old conveyor belts, and her heart raced at the sight of what looked like dried blood smeared on the wall. Bile rose in her throat, she forced it down and pressed on, a sense of dread suffusing her veins. The shadows danced alongside her, something was here. Suddenly, a voice broke through the silence, low and raspy. "Why have you come here, little girl?" A figure stepped from the looming shadows, clad in rags and carrying a knife that glinted ominously under the flickering light. Elara's breath caught in her throat as she recognized the figure from the legends, the infamous Thrasher, a monster woven into the very fabric of Lost Creek. His eyes, hollow and devoid of sanity, pierced through her as if he could read her thoughts, could taste her fear. The stories had told of his brutal reign, of a man driven mad by the town's crumbling glory. "What do you want?" Elara managed, her voice quaking despite her effort to stay composed. She felt like prey, ensnared and trembling, uncertain of his intentions. Thrasher laughed, a low, haunting sound that sent chills cascading down her spine. "What do I want? You should ask what I am. I am the darkness of Lost Creek, the sorrow of its people etched into the very walls. I am the last remnant of what they called life." His voice, a sinister blend of menace and melancholy, echoed through the hollow space. With every step he took towards her, Elara's mind screamed to flee, but her legs remained rooted to the spot, a deer caught in headlights. "You think you can understand our story? You think you can capture it in your little camera?" he sneered, gesturing to the device in her hand. "You want to shed light on what has become a festering wound?" I just wanted to know what happened," Elara stammered, managing to force the words out. The camera felt heavy, the weight of the stories it held suddenly feeling fragile, insignificant against the reality that thrummed in the room. His laughter pierced the stagnant air, and his face twisted in an unsettling grin, revealing teeth stained with something far darker than metal. "What happened here? You have only scratched the surface, little girl. The true horror is buried beneath these ruins, in the chambers of memory and regret. You want a story? I'll give you one, you'll wish you hadn't asked." With a swift motion, Thrasher brandished his knife, the metal reflecting a glint of moonlight. In that moment, Elara understood the weight of the town's history celebrated in her camera. It wasn't just about capturing faces, it was about the essence of a horror that consumed the very soul of Lost Creek. Taking a panicked step back, she felt the wall collide against her back, and suddenly, the shadows were not just shadows anymore, they were figures looming around her. Smirked, the corners of his lips curling upwards in a grotesque mockery of amusement. "Want? Oh, little girl, I simply want to know why one so naive would dare to enter my domain." The very air thickened with an eerie tension, and though he stood still, the sensation of malice pulsed from him, wrapping around Elara like a snake. I'm just trying to understand," Elara stammered, her resolve wavering under his unwavering stare. "Understand?" Thrasher scoffed. "Can you ever understand the rotting heart of Lost Creek? The shadows of my kin who once danced in the light, now lost to darkness." His words reverberated, merging with her memories of the photographs she'd seen earlier, the laughter, the joy. Suddenly, Elara recalled the details of the last festival. "The mill closed abruptly," she managed, shaking with cold and fear. "What happened to them? What did they do to you?" Thrasher's smile faded, replaced by a bitterness that twisted his features. "They turned their backs on me. The mill was our lifeblood, and when I was cast aside like refuse, the town followed suit. One by one, I watched them fall into oblivion. Those who did not flee, well, their ghosts still linger here, angry and starving." His voice dropped to a whisper, as he leaned closer, the stench of blood and decay assaulting Elara's senses. "And they will never rest as long as I am denied my rightful vengeance." The shadows enveloped Elara, intertwining with her very essence, threatening to pull her down into an unholy abyss. I don't want to be here, she gasped, instinctively stepping back. And yet, he said, his voice suddenly calm, as if the tempest within had quelled, here you are. Tell me, little girl, what would become of my story if you share it? Would you cleanse the rot, or merely embellish it? She struggled to keep her voice steady, realizing this terrifying figure was seeking something deeper than fear. I don't want to embellish anything. I want to help tell what really happened. The truth deserves to be heard. For a fleeting moment, the madness in Thrasher's eyes appeared to shift, a hint of humanity breaking through. Very well, the truth, but can you face it? Her pulse quickened at his words. She was diving deeper into a darkness she couldn't fathom. I'll try. Thrasher smirked again, but this time, it seemed less menacing. Then follow me. He led her deeper into the cavernous confines of the mill, past rusted conveyor belts and shattered machinery, towards a heavy wooden door at the far end. The stench of oil and dust mingled with something far more sinister, the smell of decay. With a slow, deliberate motion, he swung the door open, revealing a staircase spiraling downward into an abyss. Do you fear the dark? He asked, tilting his head mockingly. Fear? It's more like dread, she replied, exhaling the tension built in her chest. I can't promise I won't scream. He chuckled, a hollow, eerie sound that echoed off the walls. Scream all you like, but only the shadows will hear you. With that, he stepped into the darkness, and Elara followed, clutching her flashlight as if it were a lifeline. They descended deeper, the air growing damp and cold. Each step resonated through the stillness, a countdown to some unseen horror waiting to unfold. At the base of the stairs, they emerged into a large chamber obscured by shadows. The remnants of a forgotten factory lay scattered around, old crates crumbled beneath the weight of time, while scrawled graffiti on the walls told tales of lost souls. Every surface was drenched in a palpable sense of despair. The heart of Lost Creek, Thrasher stated quietly, his voice gentle yet filled with sorrow. This is where our lives were forged and broken. What did you mean earlier? Elara asked cautiously. About the shadows? He gestured to the far side of the chamber, where flickering light revealed dim outlines darting between shadows. Those are the echoes of my people, their deaths left residual energies. They manifest here, haunted but hungry. Elara swallowed hard, torn between fascination and fear. She stepped closer to the light, peering into the shadows. The figures within wove a tapestry of despair, stricken faces frozen in eternal longing. Some reached out to her, mouths agape in muted screams. A chill raced up Elara's spine. They look so lost. Thrasher nodded gravely, his own eyes reflecting a sorrowful empathy. Their pain is the essence of Lost Creek. But I am their guardian, and I harness it. They guide my hand, not just for vengeance, but for unyielded stories. What do you mean? Elara asked, drawing back slightly as the shadows shifted toward her. They wish their tales told, even if woven in darkness. Do you have the courage to unearth the truth? Thrasher's voice invoked both a challenge and a promise, compelling her to step further into the abyss. Drawing in a shaking breath, Elara nodded. Yes, I'll help you. I want to tell their story. Then you must listen. He gestured toward the figures, their movements seeming to ease and calm as if recognizing her intent. Each shadow and whisper carried the tales of their final hours, betrayals, greed, and the eventual downfall that plagued the mill and the town. Elara felt each narrative resonate within her, each story merging into the fabric of her being, painting a portrait of inevitability and regret. As the echoes surrounded her, an overwhelming sense of sorrow washed over her. Suddenly, a voice broke through, the faint whisper of a child echoed in the air, chilling her to her core. Why did you leave us? The voice cried. We died here. Overcome, Elara stumbled back, breathing heavily. What was that? It is the collective wail of the Forsaken, Thrasher said softly, his expression darkening. A plea for recognition, for an end to their suffering. But how? She gasped, tears pricking at the corners of her eyes. How can I help them? You have to confront the source, Ilara. The core of the darkness that brought ruin. To do that, you must venture further. With every step deeper into the mill, the shadows thickened, a smothering darkness pressing against her. Ilara felt Thrasher's presence beside her, an anchor amidst the growing chaos. They reached another door, far older and worn, its surface covered in strange glyphs and symbols that seemed to pulse with dark energy. What is behind this door? Ilara whispered. Pain personified, Thrasher replied grimly, his eyes narrowing. The heart of Lost Creek's curse. But remember, only the courageous can challenge it. She placed her hand on the door, a chill running through her as she felt the weight of lives lost behind it. With a firm shove, she pushed it open, revealing a cavernous space filled with an unsettling glow. The pulsating light revealed silhouettes, shifting and swirling, as if animated by the emotions of those trapped within. The cries grew louder, a cacophony of despair that clawed at her sanity. I can't. Embrace it, Thrasher urged. Feel their anguish. Understand their truth. Ilara clenched her fists, forcing herself to center her breathing. The swirling shadows clawed at her, filling her with an overwhelming sense of loss as if her heart was being pulled in every direction. But beneath the despair lay something else, a flicker of resolve, a desire to understand, to heal. As she pressed deeper into the light, she began to hear distinct voices rising from the swirl. Each one was a testament to a life taken too soon, cries for help, and whispers of betrayal that echoed through the caverns of time. Ilara felt the stories wrap around her like a vice, squeezing her heart with memories that were not her own. To connect with them meant embracing the pain they endured. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifted. A new presence emerged within the pulsating glow. It was a tall figure, draped in tattered garments, with eyes that flickered like dying embers. The spectral figure raised its hand as though beckoning her closer. Thrasher stepped beside her, whispering, "This is the keeper of the past, the embodiment of all the sorrow lost within this mill. It knows what shrouds the darkness." Ilara found herself drawn to the figure, unable to resist. She walked forward, her breath hitching as the air thickened. "What do you want from me?" she managed to breathe, her voice wavering as she faced the keeper. The figure remained silent, its shadowy visage shifting as whispers brushed against her ears. "You are the light," it finally said, the words resonating deep within her bones. "In the age of destruction, the light must shine through the darkness." "What do you mean?" Ilara's heart raced, the weight of its words pressing against her soul. "I'm just one person. Every story needs an audience," the keeper continued, "but not all stories can be born unscathed. Are you willing to risk everything to weave their fate into the tapestry of existence?" A challenge, an irrevocable choice hung in the air. Ilara felt the warmth of courage swell within her chest. "Yes, I will share their stories, whatever it takes." The keeper's eyes flared, and the shadows closed in tighter, almost suffocating in their intensity. "Then confront the root of despair that binds them here. You must face the remnants of the one who cursed this place." Without warning, the dark aura blurred and twisted, forming a silhouette, a man with cold, cruel eyes that dripped malice. The essence of greed and betrayal stood before her, ripping apart the veil of time and exposing the heart of Lost Creek's horror. Ilara steadied herself as the wraith-like figure manifested fully, a gaunt man with a twisted grin that spoke of unquenchable hunger. His laughter was hollow, echoing through the mill like the resonance of 1,000 shattered dreams. "You have come seeking justice, girl. Do you even know what that means?" "Justice isn't for me to decide," Ilara replied, her voice firmer than she felt. "I am here to reveal the truth. You've taken so much from them, and you will be held accountable." The man stepped forward, the shadows swirling around him, binding her in their dark embrace. Accountability, he laughed, the sound chilling her bones. What of these lost souls? They are my toys, my puppets with strings of torment that I control. You are but a fleeting spark in a night thick with despair. No, I'm the echo of their stories, she asserted, drawing strength from the keeper's unwavering presence. I'm here to tell the world what you've done. His expression morphed into rage, eyes flickering with the fire of fury. You think you can unravel these depths? You think your voice carries weight against eternity? I will feed on your feeble attempts until nothing remains but whispers of chaos. The shadows lunged at her, but Elara felt Thrasher's hand on her shoulder, grounding her. You must hold on to their stories, Elara. Use their pain, their strength. Eyes casting around, Elara focused on the shadows, the souls trapped within. I have heard your cries. Your betrayal, your anguish. It will be told. The energy surged as voices rose all around her, a chorus of sorrow intermingling with her defiance. The dark man faltered, the shadows shrinking back, quivering under the weight of their collective recognition. No. You will not silence me. But as the cries harmonized, they enveloped Elara, each lost soul strengthening her resolve. She drew it in, weaving their tales into a fabric of hope, anger, and loss, a powerful narrative to counter the darkness. With each breath, the shadows began to unravel the very fabric of despair that encased the dark figure. He writhed, his form melting into the darkness around him, the laughter fading into screams of rage. You can't do this. I am eternal. Eternal only in your lies, Elara bellowed, feeling the surge of power ignite her core. You will be cast into the void from whence you came, lost, forsaken, for eternity. Holding her breath, she felt the air shift around her, as if the mill itself sighed, a long-held breath finally released. But what of Lost Creek? What will become of this place? They will remember, Thrasher replied, stepping closer and placing a hand on her shoulder. And in remembering, they will heal. Their stories will inspire change and compassion among the living. You've given them a voice. As the last remnants of the shadows faded away, the sun broke through the mill's shattered windows, illuminating the forgotten space with a warmth that felt like the dawn of a new beginning. Elara found strength in the knowledge that though darkness may return, she had emerged from the abyss, carrying with her a tapestry of lost souls now restored to light. The tales of Lost Creek would no longer dwell in the shadows but would shine brightly, etching their lessons onto the hearts of those willing to listen. Elara stood among the remnants of the mill, her heart still racing from the confrontation. Shadows had transformed into soft, luminous whispers, floating like gentle motes of dust in the welcoming light. The malevolence that once suffocated the mill had ebbed away, leaving behind the palpable remnants of sorrow mingled with relief. Yet, a flicker of doubt nestled in her mind. Would her efforts truly lead to healing? Where do we go from here? Elara asked, her voice quaking slightly as she brushed a strand of hair away from her face. The stories, what if they aren't enough? Thrasher regarded her with heavy eyes, a mix of wisdom and weariness etched into his features. Every journey begins with a single step, Elara. It starts with remembrance. We need to return to Lost Creek and share these stories. Pain lingers only when it remains untold. She nodded, feeling the weight of his words settle into her bones. They were right, silence had allowed the man of shadows to thrive, to torment and unravel lives. But now, his tyranny had been unspooled, each thread revealing the vibrant colors of the lives that had been stolen. They would honor those lost, and in doing so, perhaps her own wounds would begin to heal. As they made their way back to Lost Creek, the atmosphere shifted. The once foreboding path now felt lighter, the landscape vibrant with a revitalized essence. Every step resonated with the excitement of potential, yet threads of fear still weaved into Elara's consciousness. What if the townsfolk were unwilling to face the truth? What if they still harbored disbelief that such darkness could exist? They arrived at the town as twilight draped a purple cloak over the landscape. The streets were filled with the murmurs of townspeople returning home, unaware of the transformation that had occurred just miles away. A small gathering formed in the center, drawn by curiosity as Elara and Thrasher approached. "Where have you both been?" Fiona, a close friend from Elara's childhood, pushed past the crowd. Relief washed over her angular features as she spotted them. "We were worried. There were tales of strange occurrences, ghosts wandering near the mill." "We have returned," Elara announced, her voice steady yet laced with urgency. "And we bring stories that must be told." The crowd hushed, eyes wide with intrigue, skepticism, and a flicker of fear. "What do you mean?" one man called from the back. "The mill," Elara began, searching the faces around her. "It was a prison for souls, the victims of an insatiable darkness. The man who tormented them has been vanquished, but their stories, their truths must be shared." A murmur spread through the crowd, uncertainty swirling like mist. Fiona stepped forward, her brow furrowed. "What do you mean, Elara? Ghosts can't hurt us anymore." "They are free," Elara assured her, the warmth of understanding igniting her resolve. "They were trapped, but I released them. Now we must honor them. We must listen to their stories, or else they will haunt us in silence." As Elara encouraged the townspeople to gather, they formed a circle, curiosity piqued by her impossible claims. She took a deep breath, feeling Thrasher's unwavering support at her side. The past is not just a shadow, it has lessons to impart. Each soul taken by the darkness left behind echoes of their struggles, their desires, and their pain. She began to speak, weaving the narratives she had absorbed from the lost souls, stories of betrayal, dreams unfulfilled, and lives extinguished far too soon. As she spoke, something extraordinary happened. The air shimmered, and the ethereal figures of the departed began to emerge, flickering in the twilight like fireflies. They carried with them the weight of their experiences, and the townspeople gasped, visibly awestruck by the apparition of their own past. The figures stepped forward, revealing their faces, every expression steeped in longing and despair. As they shared their stories, of love lost, of fights against the dark man, of moments snuffed out too soon, a tapestry crafted of grief and hope began to suffuse the gathered crowd. A sense of connection ignited, a shared understanding that sometimes the light could only arrive through the darkest of nights. Around them, sweat glistened on brows and tear-streaked faces emerged with reflections of compassion and newfound resolve. The pain began to transform into understanding, and from understanding, they cultivated a sense of unity. As the last departing soul whispered a grateful farewell, a collective sigh of relief washed over the crowd. No longer mere spectators to their own haunting history, they had embraced their ghosts, allowing their stories to entwine with their own. The sky began to brighten, heralding dawn's arrival, softening the harsh lines of night. Elara surveyed the faces turned toward her. "We have shattered the silence that imprisoned us. The spirits of Lost Creek will live on, their stories woven into the very heart of this town." Together, they stood amid a fragile yet beautiful dawn, a new chapter just beginning. In the weeks that followed, the town of Lost Creek blossomed, transforming the mill into a sanctuary where stories flowed freely. Each evening, gatherings blossomed under the stars, where townsfolk recounted the tales of those they had lost and the lessons learned from their shadows. And Elara, once a solitary figure on a quest for vengeance, had become a catalyst for change. With each recounted story, the lost souls were not just remembered, they were celebrated. Justice had not come as a sword of retribution, but instead as a gentle light leading toward understanding and growth. Their stories, woven from sorrow into a vibrant tapestry of connection, would echo through the ages, a reminder that even the darkest night could be illuminated by the simplest truths. Elara understood then that her journey was not over, it had only just begun. The past was a ghost that needed to be embraced, and in doing so, she had learned that the only way to truly defeat darkness was to allow stories to emerge and dance in the light.